Major League Baseball made an announcement today that nobody saw coming. Not the players. Not the managers. Not the analysts who have spent decades covering this sport. What MLB's front office dropped on the baseball world this afternoon was not a simple fine. It was not a warning. It was a decision so severe, so unprecedented, that it has permanently altered the careers of two of the most recognizable names in the entire sport, and sent a message to every single player in the league that will not be forgotten for a very long time. Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper have been banned. And the name they are accused of assaulting is Shohei Ohtani. The silence that followed MLB's official announcement lasted only seconds before the entire baseball world exploded. Social media collapsed under the weight of reactions. Radio stations dropped their scheduled programming. Analysts who had been preparing entirely different segments stopped everything to address what had just happened. Because what MLB confirmed today was not a rumor that had been circulating quietly. It was the official, formal, devastating conclusion to one of the most shocking incidents this sport has witnessed in a generation. To fully understand how this moment arrived, you have to go back to the night the stadium brawl broke out. According to multiple inside sources with direct knowledge of the events, the tension between the two sides had been building for weeks before it finally erupted in the most public and damaging way possible. This was not a spontaneous explosion. There were warning signs. There were conversations that happened behind closed doors. There were moments where the situation could have been de-escalated, and wasn't. The game itself had been intense from the opening pitch. The atmosphere inside the stadium was already charged with an energy that players on both sides described as unlike anything they had felt during a regular season contest. According to multiple sources, several players noticed something was different before the game even started. The warm-ups were quieter than usual. Eye contact between certain players carried a weight that veterans in the clubhouse immediately recognized as dangerous. When the incident finally erupted, it did so with a speed and ferocity that caught nearly everyone present completely off guard. According to eyewitnesses on the field and in the dugout, what began as a verbal confrontation escalated within seconds into something far more serious. And at the center of it, surrounded by chaos, under the full glare of stadium lights and television cameras, was Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani has spent his entire MLB career conducting himself with a professionalism and dignity that has earned him universal respect across the league. He does not seek confrontation. He does not engage in trash talk. He does not allow external noise to pull him away from the singular focus that has made him the most unique and valuable player the sport has seen in decades. Which is precisely why what happened that night was so shocking to everyone who witnessed it. According to multiple sources present at the scene, Ohtani was not the aggressor in any phase of what unfolded. He had been going about his business in the manner that anyone who has watched him play would immediately recognize, quietly, professionally, with complete concentration on the task in front of him. What he did not anticipate was what was coming directly toward him. Kyle Schwarber moved first. According to multiple eyewitnesses, Schwarber approached Ohtani with an intensity that immediately alarmed several players standing nearby. Words were exchanged. And then, before anyone could intervene, the situation crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. Bryce Harper, according to those present, did not attempt to pull Schwarber back. Instead, according to multiple sources, Harper inserted himself into the confrontation in a manner that transformed what might have remained a heated verbal exchange into something that MLB would later describe in its official statement using language that has almost never been applied to active players of this stature. The benches cleared within seconds. Players poured onto the field from both dugouts. Coaches sprinted across the diamond trying to reach the center of the chaos before it spiraled completely beyond control. According to those present, the sounds inside the stadium in those moments were unlike anything a regular season crowd had ever produced, a mixture of shock, horror, and the kind of electric disbelief that only arrives when something truly unprecedented unfolds in real time. The aftermath was immediate and severe. Both teams were held in their respective clubhouses for over an hour following the incident. MLB officials arrived at the stadium before the evening was over. According to multiple inside sources, the conversations that took place between league officials and representatives from both organizations that night were extraordinarily serious in tone. There was no ambiguity about what had been captured on camera. There was no dispute about the sequence of events. The footage was clear. The witnesses were numerous. And the identity of those most directly involved was never in question. Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper were formally notified that evening that they were under immediate review by MLB's Office of the Commissioner. According to sources familiar with that notification, both players and their representatives were told in explicit terms that the league was treating this matter with the highest possible level of seriousness. The word used internally, according to multiple sources, was unprecedented. That word would prove to be entirely accurate. The days between the incident and today's official announcement were filled with a tension inside both clubhouses that players described as almost unbearable. According to multiple sources, the Philadelphia Phillies organization went into an immediate internal crisis mode. Meetings were held. Statements were drafted and discarded. Legal representatives were brought in. The organization was fully aware that what Schwarber and Harper had done carried consequences that no amount of public relations management could soften. Harper, according to those close to him, spent those days in a state of quiet but visible distress. This is a player who has built his entire public identity around passion and intensity, qualities that have made him one of the most compelling figures in the sport for over a decade. But passion and intensity have limits that even the most competitive players are expected to recognize. And according to multiple sources within the organization, Harper understood privately that he had crossed a line that the league would not treat lightly. Schwarber's situation, according to those familiar with his state of mind during those days, was similarly serious. Schwarber has always been regarded as one of the more emotionally grounded presences in any clubhouse he has occupied. Players who have been his teammates describe him as someone who rarely loses control, someone who brings a stabilizing energy even in difficult moments. Which is precisely why his involvement in this incident was so difficult for people inside the organization to reconcile. This was not the Kyle Schwarber that his teammates believed they knew. And that disconnect made the waiting period even more uncomfortable for everyone around him. When MLB's official announcement arrived today, it did so with a weight and formality that reflected the severity of what the league had determined. The statement from the commissioner's office was direct, detailed, and left absolutely no room for misinterpretation. Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper were being issued suspensions that represent among the longest handed down to position players in the modern era of the sport. The specific language used in the announcement to describe the conduct directed toward Shohei Ohtani was striking in its severity, language that those who cover this sport professionally described as some of the strongest they had ever seen MLB use in an official disciplinary statement. The reaction from the Phillies organization, according to multiple sources, was one of grim resignation. There had been no realistic expectation that the penalties would be light. The footage was too clear. The witnesses were too numerous. And the identity of the player on the receiving end of the conduct, Shohei Ohtani, the face of MLB's global expansion, the player the league has built an enormous amount of its international brand around, ensured that the commissioner's office would feel the full weight of responsibility to respond with maximum seriousness. According to multiple sources inside the Phillies, the announcement landed in the clubhouse with the kind of silence that veteran players recognized immediately. Nobody cheered. Nobody expressed relief that it was finally over. The room simply absorbed the information in the same quiet, heavy way that all genuinely devastating news is absorbed, slowly, with the full understanding that nothing that follows will be quite the same as what came before. The implications for the Phillies' season are significant and immediate. Losing Schwarber and Harper simultaneously, even for a defined suspension period, represents a blow to the lineup that the organization cannot simply absorb without consequence. These are not depth pieces. These are not players who can be replaced by calling up a prospect from the minor leagues without the entire offensive structure of the team feeling the impact. Harper and Schwarber are the heartbeat of the Philadelphia offense. And with the season at a critical juncture, their absence will be felt in ways that could reshape the Phillies' entire postseason picture. According to multiple sources within the organization, manager Rob Thompson has already begun the difficult process of restructuring the lineup to absorb these absences. The conversations happening inside the Phillies coaching staff right now are not optimistic ones. They are the conversations of people trying to find a path forward through genuinely difficult circumstances entirely of the organization's own making. For Shohei Ohtani, the aftermath of this incident has been handled with the same quiet composure that defines everything he does. According to those close to him, Ohtani has not made public statements designed to amplify the controversy. He has not sought to maximize the attention this situation has generated. He has simply continued to prepare for baseball, which is, in the end, the only response that someone of his character was ever going to give. But make no mistake. What happened to Ohtani that night, and the league's forceful response to it today, has sent a signal across the entire sport that will not be ignored. The message from MLB is clear, permanent, and delivered with the kind of institutional authority that reshapes behavior across an entire league. Nobody is above accountability. Not the biggest stars. Not the most decorated veterans. Not the players with the largest contracts or the loudest fanbases. When you cross the line that Schwarber and Harper crossed, when you direct that kind of conduct toward any player, let alone the most prominent player on the planet, the consequences will be severe, public, and permanent. The Phillies are diminished. Two of baseball's biggest names are banned. And Shohei Ohtani, as he has done every single time the world has tested him, simply keeps moving forward. The baseball world is watching. And after today, it will never look at Kyle Schwarber or Bryce Harper the same way again. Thank you for watching. If this decision shocked you the way it shocked the entire baseball world, drop your reaction in the comments right now. And if you want every major MLB